Good morning, teachers, staff, parents, and students. We are Group 1 and Shiri, and I'm tongmingwa, leader of Team 1. Our presentation is mainly about the permanent mission of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations and SDG 17, which is a partnership for the goals. The topic is the UN and the youth of the Republic of Korea. Before we start our presentation, we will call the permanent mission of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations to the permanent mission because it's too long to say every time. And now let's start.
Hey, what is the content of your team?
Oh, I will tell you now. First, we will talk about the permanent mission. Next, we'll talk about the introduction of Ambassador Cho and his lecture. Next, it's about the relationship between ROK and the UN. Finally, we'll talk about the role of Korean youth and we'll finish the presentation. Hannah Cho will provide the basic information about the permanent mission and SDG number 17.
Hello, I am Hannah Cho. I am currently a rising 8th grader at St. Johnsbury Academy, Jeju. I will introduce the essential information of the permanent mission of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations, the purpose of establishing the mission, and the relationship between Sustainable Development Goal 17, which is partnerships for the goals. Hey Siri, can you give me a question?
What is the permanent mission of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations?
Oh, good question. Let me answer it. These are the information about the permanent mission of the Republic of Korea to the UN. The building is located in Manhattan, New York City, the US. The permanent mission of the Republic of Korea to the UN was established in November 1951. By establishing, South Korea became an observer nation, and finally, in 1991, South Korea became the 161st member nation. The present ambassador is Ambassador Cho Hyun. He is enacting policies in 4 categories that are related to 6 major issues, which are UN budget and human resources management, international law, human rights and humanitarian assistance, development and climate change, disarmament and non-proliferation, and international peace and security.
Then, why was the mission established?
Now let's see what the purposes of establishing the permanent mission are. To figure out the main objectives of the mission, we can trace what kind of major activities are done by the mission. How did the mission affect the relationship between the UN and South Korea, moreover the world? Let's take a look at the recent representative activities. First, the ambassador Ms. Hyunju-oh has been elected as a vice president of the executive board of UNICEF for the term 2021 at the virtual meeting of the executive board held on January 12, 2021. By this election as vice president of the executive board, the Republic of Korea is going to serve as a bureau for the first time in their executive board member participation for several years, which is from 1988 to 1997, and from 2006 to 2023. Therefore, the members of the executive board are expecting her to contribute more to the executive board and organizations on development and humanitarian assistance. The overall activities that are done by the ambassadors and vice ambassadors are attending public debates about policies, adoption of resolutions about SDGs achievements, diverse briefings, host ceremony, conduct seminars, and so on. As reported by the major public website of the permanent mission, it is mentioned that through these activities, the permanent mission tries to lead the world eagerly. Furthermore, the permanent mission works to make Korea outstanding in many different fields. According to the ambassador's greeting, the permanent mission is contributing to world peace and triumph based on the accumulated multilateral competence.
What about the SDG Goal 17? Aren't you going to explain about that?
Yeah, finally, SDG 17 is one of the main SDGs that the permanent mission works and tries to achieve. SDG 17 is to strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnerships for sustainable development. According to the SDG 17 infographic that is provided by UN, define the predictions $540 billion was gathered for low and middle income countries in 2020, which is only 1.6% below from the year 2019. This is a quite triumphant example of the SDG 17 achievements. Another successful example is that the net ODA reached $161 billion, which is 0.32% of the donor country's gross national income. Nevertheless, net ODA still needs to work hard to achieve 0.7% of the donor's GNI. The effort needed example is the electronic device provision. 3.7 billion people in the world still do not have access to online, although the COVID-19 pandemic crisis requires people to have electronic devices such as computers that support online network services. Also, 63% of low and middle income countries need more financial support for data and statistics to face the COVID-19 pandemic challenge. To sum up, the permanent mission works as the Republic of Korea representative in New York City. They devote not only to the relationship between South Korea and the UN, but also the development and peace of the world based on SDG 17. The next speaker is Kyungmin Kwon. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tongmingwa, Junior at Cheongsim International Academy. Today I will introduce the activities and programs of the Permanent Mission of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations. First of all, I will introduce the representative ambassador and explain the departments of this organization and explain the recent activities.
Who is the current ambassador on a permanent mission?
Oh, it's Ambassador Jo Hyun is the official director of the Permanent Mission. He was appointed as the next ambassador after Ambassador Jo Tae-yeol. He graduated from Yonsei University, majoring in political diplomacy, and earned a master's degree in international relations and politics from the University of America and France, and was appointed ambassador to many countries. Since then, he has served as the vice foreign minister. Now I will talk about the departments of this organization. Before I talk about the categories of the permanent mission, who can say about the departments of this organization? It's a question. You can just participate it in our presentation. Anyone knows the answers? I think the Hannah already said as the before presentation. There are 6 areas: international peace security, disarmament non-proliferation, development climate change, human rights, international law, UN finance, and human resource management. I will explain these areas more specifically. First, international peace and security, along with development and human rights, are one of the top 3 UN missions. And as conflicts continue to occur all over the world, this is still an important mission for the UN Korea. Korea has already served as 2 non-permanent members in the Security Council. In particular, the 2021 UN Peacekeeping Ministers meeting in Seoul is expected to be an important opportunity to see concrete ways to promote international peace and security and strengthen our contribution to it. Second, amid growing threats of weapons of mass destruction, WMD, the need to strengthen the international non-proliferation system, such as NPT, is growing. Korea will continue to make efforts to maintain and strengthen the NPT system with the international community. We support a progressive approach to considering the international security environment, and the international community should work together to improve the overall security environment and take practical and effective steps to promote it. Third, in September 2000, 198 countries, including Korea, adopted the UN Millennium Summit to improve the living standards of those suffering from poverty and underdevelopment, and presented specific and measurable development goals named MDGs, based on the Millennium Summit. As the MDGs expired in 2015, the international community discussed establishing international development goals to be pursued later, and that was the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Fourth, our country is making the protection and promotion of international human rights one of the main challenges of foreign policy and participating in the international community's efforts to promote and protect people's human rights around the world. As a member of various UN consultative bodies, Korea is actively participating in human rights issues and activities within the UN as a party to 7 major international human rights agreements. Fifth, the reason why Korea achieved democracy and economic growth at the same time in a half century is that it has contributed to reflecting the importance of the rule of law in the 2030 SDGs and emphasizing that all UN member states will make domestic and international efforts to promote it. As a responsible member of the international community, Korea has actively participated in the process of forming international norms such as the UN General Assembly and has faithfully fulfilled its international obligations as a party to major multilateral agreements. Finally, the UN Secretariat conducts a variety of projects throughout the year to ensure UN member states' resolutions and decisions in various fields. It led to effectiveness and performance at various sites around the world. All of the Secretariats of activities, including these UN projects, also require budgeting and staffing, which is members' right and duty to effectively manage and use human resources made of valuable members and talented people around the world. This concludes the overall introduction of the permanent mission. From now on, Yuri will talk about recent activities and that permanent mission did and explain about the Ambassador Cho lecture.
Hello, I'm Yuri Hong, a rising 8th grader, and I'm going to be talking about recent activities that permanent mission did and introduce Ambassador Cho and his lecture. Although the pandemic has occurred worldwide due to COVID-19, the activities of the Korean delegation in the UN are continuing. In March 2021, Deputy Ambassador Oh Hyun-ju attended the United Nations.
What did Ambassador Oh did after she attended the UN?
After she attended the United Nations, Ambassador Oh emphasized the importance of water and sanitation to overcome coronavirus and prevent future infectious diseases, the role of integrated water management system, health, economic development, environment protection, and development cooperation to improve water supply capabilities in Korea. As a second activity, the UN Economic and Social Council
Do you think Korea
held a plenary meeting at the UN headquarters in New York on July 22 to appoint Park Sun-ae, a professor at Seoul National University's Graduate School of Public Administration and Finance, as the next member of the International Taxation and Cooperation Committee. It is the first time that two of us have entered the panel of experts who play an essential role in the decision-making of the United Nations at the same time. Professor Park will serve as a member of the 6th Committee of Public Administration and Governance Experts, strengthening member countries' public administration capabilities and supporting innovation, reviewing UN public administration, and e-government evaluation. As multinational companies' activities expand to the digital sector, Lee will serve as a member of the 5th International Tax Cooperation Expert Committee, provide a framework for strengthening tax cooperation among countries, prepare a guide for evaluation, and recommend technical support. Now I would like to introduce Ambassador Cho. His name is Cho Tae-er and is currently the Diplomat of Korea, Minister of Trade and Negotiation of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Negotiation Ambassador to Spain. Ambassador Cho also had accomplished many achievements related to the United Nations. From January 2019, he is currently the chairman of the Executive Board of the UN Development Program, the United Nations Population Fund, and the United Nations Project Procurement Organization. Now I would like to introduce some of the points from Ambassador Cho's lecture.
Is a developing country or a developed country?
Based on Ambassador Cho's personal experience, people are not confident to introduce Korea as a well-developed country, which means Korea is not a developed country nor a developing country, but somewhere between those two. He also pointed out that we have to take a look into all the issues in the global agenda vertically and horizontally. We have to relocate resources, continue to strengthen globalism and nationalism. In the UN system, we have to play an important role as a significant player to strengthen the role of the UN. Due to Ambassador Cho, if we do not open our eyes to the future and global community, we may not be able to be a genuinely global participant. Ambassador Cho also wrote a book named The Power of Pride and Principle. and recommended a book named 탁월한 사이의 시선. Nextly, Henning will explain the history of the relationship between the Republic of Korea and the United Nations.
Hello, my name is hailinkim, and I'm a rising sophomore at Cornerstone Collegiate Academy of Seoul. I'll be talking about the aid that Republic of Korea received since the Korean War and the growth of Korea, which is proven by our support for the UN nowadays. Hey Siri, do you have something to ask?
When the Korean War erupted, did South Korea get any support?
We surely got lots of aid in diverse fields. In 1947, the United Nations established the UN Temporary Commission on Korea to assist in forming the Korean government. Right after Korean War erupted, the United Nations Command was dispatched for the peace and security of the Korean Peninsula. This was the only time the UN sent troops to impose military measures.
I thought that the UN had no official troops.
There is no official designation for United Nations forces, as you said. But this time, it was a one-of-a-kind situation where the troops flew the UN flag. After the resolution approved the foundation of UNC, the designation of the American commander, and the use of United Nations flag, the commander-in-chief officially headed the chain of command to the Security Council and the United Nations Secretary General. The United Nations military intervention began as soon as the war broke out, according to a UN resolution. Military participation by UN member states began in earnest with US forces leading the way. Around 38,000 UN forces perished during the battle, with 130,000 people injured and 10,000 people being taken prisoner or missing. Turk Lai, the Secretary General, on the other hand, requests the members' support for Resolution number 83. As a result, several countries offered various commitments ranging from political and military support to food and pharmaceutical provision. The United Nations Commission for the Unification and Rehabilitation of Korea was established after the fighting had stopped. As the North and South agreed to a ceasefire, the United Nations contributed to economic growth through the United Nations Korea Reconstruction Agency. This UNKRA aided by implementing projects in the areas of business, mining, agriculture, education, housing, and medicine, with a total value of $924 million in current currency.
Was there a point that South Korea developed?
There was, and the United Nations Development Program Seoul Center was a particularly important influence in society and business development. Since the early 1980s, the Republic of Korea has not received support for rapid growth, and the office's disbandment signified Korea's transition from a beneficiary to a provider country. Furthermore, since 1986, when complementary economic cooperation between developing countries was required globally, our country has provided financial assistance to developing countries by establishing cooperative funds and trust funds for the United Nations Industrial Development Organization and the Food and Agriculture Organization.
I will give my last question. What is the current relationship between the UN and Republic of Korea?
That's important. We and the UN are in a very positive relationship, and the admission of Korea to the United Nations marked the beginning. Korea's diplomacy took the lead in various areas of the United Nations once we joined. Korea was the 56th chairman of the General Meeting and a non-permanent member of the Security Council from 1997 to 1999. Ban Ki-moon, the United Nations 8th Secretary General, was born in South Korea. The Republic of Korea has maintained a close relationship with the United Nations through assisting developing countries by our experience of significant growth. Our country currently ranks 11th in terms of the UN contributions and 10th in contributions to peacekeeping operation. Various UN national, regional, and small regional offices and international organizations are based in Korea. They are responsible for a wide range of policy concerns, competency development training, and business planning. There are 14 United Nations offices and international organizations in Seoul, 8 in Songdo, Incheon, and 1 each in Gyeonggi Province, Busan, and Jeju Island. To summarize, Korea, which has significantly benefited from UN assistance since the Great Depression, has made significant economic progress and is now in a position to assist other developing countries. Korea is searching for new methods to support the United Nations and its many organizations in their efforts to promote the world peace and achieve Sustainable Development Goal number 17, Partnerships for the Goals. The next speaker will be Hee Jae-jung, who will explain the role of Korean youth in the United Nations.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Hee Jae-jung. I'm a rising senior at SkySim International Christian School. I am the last speaker of our presentation. I'll present how we, the youth of the Republic of Korea, can contribute to the United Nations and the global society. Just like what Harry mentioned before, many people, even from the ages between 17 to 19, joined the war. Whoever ages between 17 and 19, can you raise your hands? Okay. Due to their sacrifices, we are what we are today. I firmly believe that it is time to remember and reward what we have gotten from the world and the United Nations. In order to make this world better, Ambassador Cho suggested that we think about what we as students could do. Our team came up with an idea, RRC, which stands for Remember Reward Campaign. Now, I'll suggest 3 specific agendas of the campaign. The first project is Read and Watch. Through social media platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, we can raise awareness about the UN veteran, so that people can recognize and remember them. I personally have made an Instagram account for the RRC. What I aim in this account is for followers to gain knowledge about our less known heroes. My team will post stories about these heroes and make short clips of their interview. So feel free to visit our page if you guys are interested. I will be more than happy to collaborate with you. Secondly, write and give. We can conduct projects such as writing appreciation letters with small gifts to the UN veterans or their families. We'll deliver it through the embassies. It will be an impactful project in terms of remembering our history and rewarding our heroes. I invite you fellow students to take part in this project. Moreover, we can raise funds for several countries that have contributed to the Korean War. Not only that, Korean War veterans earn about 200,000 won monthly, which we believe to be extremely inadequate. We could, or rather, must raise the money. Through our campaign on social media, we can increase the awareness so that our government implements proper policies. Lastly, remember and turn toward Busan. Honorable staff and fellow participants, what do you remember when you hear the date November 11th? Did you know that it was the Memorial Day of the UN Army? Every November 11th at 11 a.m., people all over the world bow to Busan for a minute, where the only UN Army cemetery is located. This campaign was originally suggested by Vincent Courtney, who was one of the Canadian veterans in 2007. Sadly, only few people know about this campaign. Through the Remember Reward campaign, we would also want to spread awareness and promote the Turn to Busan campaign widely. In conclusion, it is not by chance that we are living in a peaceful, democratic, and prosperous country. Freedom is not free. Freedom costs people's lives, freedom, money, health, and emotions. You and I are standing here today in this country because of the sacrifices made by our forgotten heroes. Let's remember and return it back to our heroes. Before our team finish our presentation, we want to share one video. So let's take a look together.
There's an old picture in black and white, lost in the middle of time. Names of faded stars, written on a piece of wood. So the time goes on and on, kept in our mind and our heart, hopes to be remembered, the reason why we're still here, one by one and one. They didn't let each other fall. I heard a mother's cry. She begged to keep her child alive. On the road where they had to leave them, the ones in helpless hands. On the road they should have returned. Only trees are overgrown. The wings of memories blow in the woods of oblivion, calling the ones who left to come back to their homes again. 'Cause the moments we held together, now the freedom's in the air, in clear skies and rivers too. Don't ever forget, to the mothers and fathers too. Don't ever forget.
This is our team's references. And this concludes the presentation of Group 1. Thank you for listening to our speech.
So, any questions? For those who have questions to Team 1, please raise your hand. For Sue, and then it will only accept 2 questions, sorry.
Sue and Seokyeon, you guys raise your hands first.
Hi, thank you guys so much for your presentation. I learned so much. I just have one question regarding the project at the end and that Hee-jae mentioned. How would you differentiate your campaign with other existing campaigns to help, to support Korean veterans, things like Project Soldier, KWV, or other things that the ministry supports? How would you differentiate your campaign?
First of all, our campaign is so meaningful because it started by teenagers. And it has meaning that we remember our history and reward our forgotten heroes. And already there are lots of campaigns, but sadly, we don't know about this campaign. However, if we, so-called kind of elite of the Republic of Korea, if we started this campaign and raising awareness, then other people and other youth will focus on our project, and it will be very meaningful because we teenagers appreciate, like I said, and started. And the reason, my third project, Turn Toward Busan, and there are already a lot of campaign in Busan. However, like I said, mentioned earlier, we don't know about it. But it is, I think, the first time teenagers guys made this project and started widely. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll go next. So I love how you guys did the Siri thing. It was very creative and I enjoyed it. So about the Koreans' mission to the UN, I would like to go back to the Korean War. If you go back to the 1950s and 60s, they were successful by raising man, the GA elected first president of Korea, then democratically elected. Korea was going toward a good trajectory. But if you look at the war, they were able to push China and North Korea to China's borders with UN forces in collaboration to the US and Korea. However, after the MiG planes and weapons of mass destruction were implemented, they were pushed back to the 38th parallel. I'd like to ask you, what failure of the UN brought that cause and failure to bring a ceasefire currently with North Korea and South Korea?
To talk about that, actually that wasn't the part of our lecture, our presentation. Yes, and because of the limited time, we couldn't search about that. Sorry for that.
No, it's totally fine.
Can I answer your question?
Oh yeah, you can.
I think, of course, everything cannot be done perfect. However, we have to, first of all, without UN, my question is, do you think what we are here today, do you think what would be our situation?
Oh yeah, that's true. If there wasn't a UN, although they may be America, without the UN bloc of democracy, they wouldn't be able to bolster any efforts of democratic rights, and the Korean Peninsula would be left. No one really knows what happened. It's that one of those what ifs. Those what ifs, like what if North Korea conquered Korea? What if communism conquered Korea? So I think the UN contribution really prevented any of the disastrous scenarios that could have happened.
I hope that's answered your question.
That was very helpful. Thank you, guys.